are the champion, the one that holds the line and finishes the mission. Everything that you want is within your grasp. You wake up in the morning ready to dominate the day, and every step taken is with purpose and integrity. Because you were not put on this planet to live a mediocre existence. You are here to conquer and make the biggest impact possible, not only for yourself, but for your family and for your tribe. This world is a battlefield, and we will be victorious. This is the Norse Mentality.
What's up, guys? I hope that you are having a glorious day. Today, I'm sitting down with OG Norse athlete Isaac Mays. He's visiting from Canada. Isaac, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. Yeah, it's good to finally make my way down here.
How long have you been with Norse?
Since summer of 2018. Yeah, when I bumped into you there in Calgary, Alberta, it was one of my first big competitions.
So that was one of your first ones, right?
Yeah, that was one of my first big kind of heavyweight shows at the time. So I was going against some big Canadian boys.
I remember you cleaned house, though.
Yeah.
And I think that's really why afterwards. So we were up there sponsoring that event. I think that was just an excuse for me to come to Canada, actually, now that I'm looking back on it. We got asked to sponsor the event. We made T-shirts, I think, for everyone.
T-shirts for the show, yeah.
And then Allison, another Norse athlete, she was up there, and she's like, you should just come up for it. I was like, you know what? That's exactly what I'm going to do. So I just used that as an excuse, and that's where we met. But I remember Allison saying that you kind of were just getting started in strongman, and then later that day, you cleaned house. Did you take first that day?
I did take first.
Right.
Yeah.
So I remember just being like super impressed. I'm like, all right, well, this dude needs to come on. Plus, we talked a little bit and you're just super chill. And that's usually how it goes with Norse. And anytime someone asks us, like, what do I need to do to be a Norse athlete? I'm like, if I can't see myself sitting down and having a beer with you, it's not going to happen.
Yeah, that's the best way to do it. Definitely. You got to get along with your athletes and be friends with them, not just kind of do it as a business thing.
Right. And as you guys know, I don't whore you guys out. Where compared to other companies, you need to post this many times and all that. It's like, no, your job is to compete. That's all I need you to do.
Yeah.
You just compete. And other than that, like, we're just bros, we're hanging out, we're a family and all that good stuff. So you've been competing in strongman since around 2018.
Yeah, I started at the end of 2016, actually, and just kind of slowly worked my way up from there. And then, yeah, it was pretty much 2018 is when I kind of really blew up and made the most progress, it seemed.
What got you into it?
At the time, actually, I was just, I played sports. I always went to the gym, always liked to be really strong. But I was bouncing at a bar at the time, and a couple of the other bouncers happened to do strongman, and one of their older brothers owned the gym. So they were always kind of bugging me. Oh, you think you're strong, come
busting your balls,
come to the gym and prove yourself kind of thing. And just showed up, carried a yoke, flipped a couple tires, and and then the rest was history from there.
That's awesome. So you were a bouncer and you're up in Northern Canada, right?
Right. Yeah.
How is bouncing at bars in Northern Canada? Like, I imagine that being pretty gnarly.
Yeah, it's interesting. I worked, in our city of Regina, it's 200,000 people, so it's not terribly small. And worked in an Irish pub, actually, right on Main Street downtown. So it could hold about 300-400 people. So it got pretty rowdy on weekends. And
but the culture up there as well, like, you have a lot of just blue collar, heavy hitting guys.
Yeah.
They usually work like on the oil rigs and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then they're coming home, they're getting drunk, they're wanting to fight. And you're the one that has to break up all that.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's everybody likes their beer up there. After a hard day's work, everybody wants to let loose on the weekends. And it was definitely a little scrappy there for a bit. And in my younger days, I loved it. It was always fun to get in there and, be the enforcer and break it up. But now those days are behind me. I'm kind of happy I don't do it anymore.
You don't have to do that anymore. That's amazing. So what kind of made you fall in love with strongman? Was it just like the fact that you got in there and you were able to just do what you do best, be strong and have fun while doing it? Or like, what really made you fall in love with the sport itself?
I think it was because I always did team sports and stuff like that. And strongman, obviously, I have a coach now and I have a support system around me in that. But at the end of the day, it's you performing by yourself. And so it kind of leaves, it's all in your hands, so to speak, kind of thing. So that way, you know what you can do, you're controlling it, the outcome, and it's just you worrying about it.
I like the way that you put that, because I know a lot of people, they don't get started in competing in strongman or any sport for that matter because they're so worried about how they're not going to be the best. Or, well, this person's going to be stronger than me. I'm not going to win, so there's no point in me doing it. Whereas in the way that they should be looking at it is exactly how you just said. You're competing against yourself. And if you end up taking first at a competition, that's like icing on the cake. But not doing something just because you know that there's someone else that's already better than you, it's pretty much just a cop-out not to get started in the first place.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely see it that way. It's always kind of a self-improvement thing. You know, hitting a PR in the gym or something like that was always, didn't matter who I was competing against. It could be in the gym or at a competition. It was just cool to push yourself and see yourself improve rather than compare yourself to everyone else.
So if you are listening and you're interested in competing, don't be that person that's just like, well, I'm not going to be the best, so there's no point. Like, the point here is to become the best version of yourself, like Isaac was just saying. And you got into it, you ended up being great at it. And what all competitions like have you won so far? I know you won a lot, but like, what are like the major titles that you now have?
So yeah, in Canada, I won amateur nationals as an open heavyweight the 1 year, 3 times Saskatchewan strongest man as an open competitor. And then kind of in the international scene, I really fall into the 105 kilogram or the 231 pound category, just because that's kind of where my body weight sits best. And I didn't want to push my body weight too far. So in 2019, I took second at World's Strongest Man in the 231 category. And then just last year, my first big international win was Clash on the Coast World Champion.
Which you just absolutely dominated that.
Yeah, it was really good last year. Everything went perfect. My prep went perfect. I was feeling really strong. And luckily, it happened to be at a big show. Like Clash on the Coast is probably the most competitive show for that weight class. And then there's a 10 grand prize on top of that too, which is always nice.
You won a bunch of money.
Yeah.
You showed up. You did your thing. You just competed at the same event this past weekend, right?
Yeah. I just finished Clash on the Coast for my 3rd time. So I made the final again, was a little too beat up going into the final and all that. And I managed 5th again for the 2nd time. I placed 5th the first year, won it the 2nd year, and then got 5th again this past weekend.
Still solid.
So
Still
yeah, I'm
solid.
definitely, I can't complain about it. Obviously it sucks to not win after winning it last year,
Yeah.
but yeah, 5th out of like 30 of the best guys in the world.
And
I
they
can't
are the
complain.
best. Like, everyone that competes at Clash are absolute monsters. And there's
Yes.
people from all over that fly in for this thing.
Yeah.
It's not just like you North American thing. It's all over the world.
No, yeah, there's a guy from Ireland, a guy from Finland, a couple guys from all over Europe. Obviously, most of the guys come from the U.S. because the U.S. is very competitive and it's here in the U.S., so it's easier for them. But yeah, and then there's 3 other Canadians this year as well. So
Did the other Canadians do pretty well?
they did okay. Yeah, they actually, none of them had ever done Clash before, so it was kind of their first time seeing that format and
Yeah.
competing out in the heat on the beach and stuff. So yeah, there's a couple of them that just barely missed making it to the final too.
Really?
So yeah.
Canada Strongman is really an impressive thing to watch over the years, because it has, I mean, I think whenever Norse kind of started, it was Strongman in Canada was just really on the rise. And then now I feel like all the heavy hitters in Strongman are coming out of Canada now, which is super impressive. Why do you think that is? Do you think it's like a community aspect, or just overall, like, that's the environment that you guys grow in? Like, you kind of have to be a tougher, stronger individual to survive in Canada, because I mean, like, where you guys are at, it's super cold up there. It's a harsher environment. So naturally, like, you just have to be that type of person. Do you think that has something to do with it?
Yeah, I definitely think that has something to do with it. Definitely the community too, though. It seems like it's improved so much. Like, it seems like there's so many competitions nowadays and stuff that it's really, it's a matter of growing the sport, and, you know, it's bringing out more athletes, making people more competitive, and there's more incentive, a little bit of travel money here and there and stuff like that.
Which that money aspect is a newer thing too, because back in the day, like, you never got paid for this type of stuff. And now Clash was the first one that really started doing it, right?
Yeah, Clash was the first real big one for that weight class for sure.
And now everyone's kind of offering cash prizes, which is super cool, that you guys don't have to pay for everything out of your pocket, or necessarily depend on sponsorships and stuff like that. You show up.
Yeah, like, it's definitely never gonna, you know, pay the bills unless you're one of the absolute best in the world and stuff in the open heavyweight and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
it definitely makes it easier to know you can come out on top, and then at least get your travel paid for and stuff like that. That way you're not losing money to do something like that.
Right. You still have fun, but then also you're not having to take out a loan to go compete or anything like that.
Yeah.
So as you're getting ready for a competition, I'm guessing you take prep pretty seriously.
Yeah.
And then what does your diet and stuff look like?
Yeah, so it's very serious in prep. It's hard. Prep is stressful because you got to be so dialed in to win a big show like Clash that you kind of cut other things out of your life, which is hard to do. But I try and stay dialed in for about 4 months leading up. So my diet's on point. It's nothing but meat and rice and stuff like that. And then I'm training about 4 days a week, 3 to 4 hours a day. And luckily, with being a hunter and stuff like that, I get to eat a lot of wild meat and stuff like that, so it makes it easier. And but yeah, so
that's probably, we were talking about this right before we started the podcast, but that is the main reason I was excited to sit down and talk to you for the podcast. Is you're not just a strongman. Like a lot of people that compete, this is all they do, which is great. Like they're obsessed with it, which I think is fantastic. But you're not just obsessed with strongman. Like you are also a very big outdoorsman. I feel like the majority of the time when we're talking about you hunting or fishing or anything like that. What do you think? Do you think those two like tie in together? Do you think like spending time outdoors, because you go out for weeks and weeks at a time, just completely cut off pretty much, either hunting or camping on a frozen lake or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Do you think taking the time to do that type of stuff carries over to you competing and like being good at competing?
Definitely, it's from a mental aspect. It does, like the dedication it takes to do that kind of stuff. And it's also good just to, clear your mind and be out in the outdoors and do something like that. Anyone can do that. It's good for anyone. But as far as competing goes, it's almost hard to do both at the same time because I got to be so big and strong for competing, and then to be out hunting and stuff like that is more hiking and in better shape and stuff like that.
Right.
But so I try to find a balance because I'm also very realistic with myself that competing at this high level, you can't do it for so long. It's hard on your body, and you only have so many years in your prime and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I try to have other hobbies and outlets that I'm super dedicated to as well, and find a balance. That way, when I'm done with strongman, I can do other things with my life.
Which I think is extremely important, because there's a lot of athletes that all they know is that sport that they're in, and they might get injured, or maybe it's exactly what you're saying, like it's just time to move on to something else. And they end up experiencing really bad depression and stuff like that because that was their only outlet. They didn't have anything else going on. And because of that, like they become lost. They don't have a purpose anymore, unless they're like, they don't feel like they have a purpose anymore. They're not fulfilled by the things that used to make them feel fulfilled. So having multiple outlets and things to pursue that aren't necessarily the same, I think that's a safe bet in general, just to be well diverse. But then also, like you're saying, you're having to go hiking. If you kill something, you're gonna have to carry that back. That's strongman pretty much. Like you're having to move fast in some of the events. You're having to carry something extremely heavy back. So you're just applying that same thing, but in like a real world setting.
Yeah, I remember one time specifically, I shot a big whitetail buck. I think it was 3 years ago. I have him mounted on my wall at home, and shot him way back in the bush. So I had to drag him about 400 yards to get him out because you couldn't get a truck or an ATV or anything in there. It was just solid bush. And then when I got back to my truck, I had my beat up Toyota at the time, and my tailgate was smashed in, so I couldn't open it. So I had to stand in the box of my truck and reach all the way down over my closed tailgate and grab the antlers and pull the whole animal into the box of my truck over top of my tailgate.
I like that idea, though. Whenever you're approaching training, you're training for life.
Yeah.
Like you're not just training to be good in a competition. Like you're training to be able to do stuff like that. If you weren't really someone that did have an emphasis on strength training and you were stuck in that situation, you probably would have had to leave the damn deer there, right?
Yeah. And that's why I love strongman the most, I think, is because it's kind of a very primitive form of lifting. It's stones and rocks and flipping tires and
random
stuff like
objects and stuff.
Yeah, it's just kind of random full body strength that kind of transfers over to anything in your day-to-day life.
Yeah, there is no bullshitting strongman. Like you're either strong or you're not.
Yeah.
When it comes to other sports, you can get so precise with technique
Yeah.
that can really work to your advantage, especially in powerlifting with like
Yeah.
deadlifting and stuff like that.
Yeah.
There are some dudes that are just pulling massive numbers, which they have to be strong to pull those numbers. But at the same time, they're just so dialed in with their technique and leverages and stuff that they're able to just do. You would look at him like, how is this 140-pound person pulling 700 pounds? Like, this is insane.
Yeah.
With strongman, that's not going to happen.
No.
You're either strong or you're not.
Yeah. Because you might run into something at a competition that you've never even seen before. Even something as simple as lifting natural stones or something like that. Every stone is shaped different. You got to work it around your body different. So that's kind of a strength that you can't really train for other than just general strength and practicing as much as you can, whereas something like a deadlift is going to be almost the exact same every single time. So it definitely is technique compared to more just general strength.
I like what you said about how it's all like primitive almost, because when you're lifting stones, there's nothing else like it. I don't know what it is. Just lifting a damn stone is the funnest thing in the world. And I think it's because that's what we've been doing for so long. And it's also, you know, different societies and cultures and shit throughout history have had test of strength where that's all it was. Like, you lift this big ass stone. You know, the most famous ones are over in Iceland, but those were all over the place. You had them in Scotland, you had them in different parts of Europe. I'm sure it existed in South America and just different parts of the world. That's what we've been doing for as long as possible. And I think there's like a part of that that's still in our DNA, especially as a man, where you go to just lift a heavy stone and you get that stone. There's nothing else like it. It's absolutely amazing.
Yeah, I'm definitely obsessed with Iceland. That's why I always bug you about it. Is that's on my bucket list. I'll definitely have to do it one of these times and just tour around and pick all the stones up and kind of learn the history about it at the same time and think about everybody that's had to do it back in the day and stuff, and then try and do it myself.
That's what's crazy about those stones is they've been there for 1,000 years. People, I mean, those stones have been there for a long fucking time, but they've been using those stones to test strength for so long. So that's definitely something that's going through your head when you're lifting those stones is how many men have lifted these stones throughout the last 800 to 1,000 years? It's a fucking lot. Like, and then knowing that they were doing that, like you were saying, it's a competition, of course. You know, I'm sure a bunch of dudes just hanging out, drinking beers or whatever, and seeing who could lift it. And it's also like that's what got them their jobs on the boats. Whoever could get full sturker got paid the most. If you couldn't get the lightest stone, you weren't even allowed on the damn boats. They wouldn't even let your ass on the boat. They're like, yeah, you're fucking worthless. That's actually what it translates to.
Really?
Yeah, like that. I don't remember the Icelandic word for it, but that lightest stone. It pretty much translates to worthless. Like, you can't, they don't want you anywhere near them. But that's something that's going through your head the whole time is how many people have lifted these stones. But it wasn't just in competition. Like, they were proving that to themselves. And there is nothing more frustrating than trying to get, you won't have to worry about this. Like, you'll get it on first time. But me not being a super strong person, not being able to get those fucking stones is the most frustrating thing. And I've spent 30 minutes to 45 minutes of just going at it. I don't know if there's anything else that I would have eventually. I was like, I don't really fucking care. You know, whatever. But with those stones, like, no, I'm going to get this damn stone. But there's just something about it, man. And I do like that about strongman as well, is that everything is practical. Like, that is something that you can apply to everyday life, and it's going to carry over. Like, there is no strongman that would have difficulty doing anything else as far as strength is concerned in everyday life. And you have to just be an overall just really well put together athletic person, because there are the moving events where you have to move as quickly as possible. But I think my favorite part about it, and this is what I want to like kind of dig into a little bit more with you, is the strategic aspect of strongman. It's not something that a lot of people talk about, but I've been to enough of these competitions where you have to be strategic with it. It's not just a matter of walking up on a platform and picking something up and putting it back down. Like, you're competing with other people. You're having to figure out, okay, I need to conserve energy on this one in order to move into the next event. Like, I know where I'm at right now. I don't need to exert myself completely. How do you approach the strategic aspect of strongman?
Yeah, I've definitely always considered myself like a strategic person, not even just in strongman, in life. Like, I do have like a Bachelor of Science degree to work as a geologist and stuff like that. So I've always been kind of a smarter guy that always thinks about stuff like that and tasks and steps. Whereas with strongman, that's exactly what it is too. is everybody thinks it's just brute strength, but it's a lot of mental and brains to think about how to do that. So for example, best way to do it is to compete more. You know, you're never going to see these things if you don't get out and compete. So in 6 years, I've done about, I think that was Clash was competition number 43. So I've definitely been, I've seen most things. So it's kind of, you just got to go out there and kind of figure out a way that is going to be the most efficient. So and it all depends for everybody different too, because everybody's taller, shorter, bigger, you know, different leverages and stuff like that. So it's definitely a mind game more than just a strength game.
And it's not just one rule applies to all either.
No.
You know, like you said, there's a height difference where if you're having to load a stone to a platform, for someone that's super tall, no problem.
Yeah.
But to someone that's a little bit shorter, they're going to have to figure out, how am I going to get this damn stone up to there? My favorite story about this dude is Allison, our mutual friend, how we met actually, who we were talking about earlier. Allison was like the original Norse athlete. And the way that Allison came on, and for those of you that don't know, Allison Lockhart, she used to be Canada's strongest woman. She's just an absolutely amazing individual. But we were at World's Strongest. I think it was like this first year or the second year that they did World's Strongest. It was in Raleigh.
Yeah.
Allison flew down for it. She was competing. She fucked herself up so bad throughout the course of that weekend. Her hip was like, her knee was all jacked up. Her shoulder was all jacked up. She had to do a truck pull and a stone, like a stone series loading event. And she came up to the booth because we were there sponsoring it and stuff. And she's telling me all these things that are messed up on her. And I'm like, how are you going to do the rest of these events? Like, are you going to be good? And she's like, oh, yeah, no problem. So with the stones, I'm just going to hate fuck it onto the platform. And then with the truck pull, this knee's messed up, but this shoulder's fine. So like I can just kind of leverage those two and I'll get it. She crushed both of them.
Yeah.
But that's still something like me and John talk about it because we were standing there when she was saying this to us. Anytime like stones comes, like, yeah, you just got to hate fuck it onto the platform. But it's having that kind of mindset where it's, okay, I'm jacked up with this, but what else can I do? Where compared to a lot of people, they'd be like, well, my knee's messed up, so I'm done. Where if you want it bad enough, like you're probably going to figure out, is there a practical way? It's being strategic again. Is there a way that I can still continue moving forward with this and maybe take first or whatever?
Yeah.
Like either way, like I don't have to give up just because something's messed up.
Right. Yeah.
And being able to be strategic with and be, okay, well, what are my options here? But you have to do that in the moment.
Yeah.
Especially if you're in the middle of a loading event or something like that, where you have to load multiple things back to back to back. And then you have to figure out, okay, that didn't go as planned. What am I going to do with the next 3 events moving forward? Is that something that like goes through your mind as you're competing?
Definitely. Yeah. I try and not to do it exactly in the moment because you like to kind of shut yourself out and just go out and kind of give it as hard as you can.
Yeah.
You get zoned in, but definitely leading up to it. Like I'm really good with like visualization and stuff like that. When I'm getting ready for an event, I'm just calm breathing, thinking about everything, going through the mental reps in my head and kind of visualizing how I can manipulate or how I can pick things up that's going to be the most efficient or the easiest way to not hurt myself.
I like that you brought up visualization. I remember when I first started getting into lifting 10 years ago or so, I was reading a book and the guy was saying that how before you go to squat or bench or perform any exercise, visualize yourself going through the reps, executing the lift in your head before you do it, and your chances of doing it skyrockets. Do you think that's the case as well?
Yeah, definitely. Like it's hard. Obviously, everybody's going to have a bit of doubt and stuff, but that's why you try and use visualization and try and imagine yourself performing it and performing it flawlessly. That way you try and close out that self-doubt as much as you can. And then that way, when you kind of shut everything off and go kind of just full berserker mode to say, you can you visualized and prepared yourself to that so that your body's kind of just going to naturally do it at that point because you've thought about it for so long.
And the mind, once the mind sees something, the mind isn't able to distinguish if that's real or not. Like if you play that out in your head enough times, the mind goes, yeah, we've already done this. And it's placebo, right? Like you're able to execute on it and your chances of succeeding skyrockets. But this isn't just something that you can do with lifting. Like you can do this with every aspect of life. If you have a challenge that's coming up or you want to accomplish something, visualize yourself doing it over and over again. If you're laying in bed at night, play it out in your head over and over until eventually you fall asleep. Or if you're taking time in the morning, you just have downtime or whatever it is. Or if you're on the plane on your way to a competition, like you're saying, you can use visualization to move you forward in pretty much anything.
Yeah, definitely. Like even with my job, like working as a geologist on the rigs, trying to land into an oil reservoir and stuff like that. It's such a fast paced and stressful environment because it's such a high, it's an expensive job, right? So if you botch something, you know, it might be $1 million well or something like that you're screwing up. So you're trying to visualize what you're doing and how it's going to work out and stuff like that. So that way you're prepared for it. And it's same with hunting too. Like you're visualizing the wind direction, everything like that, you know, the deer trails, which way they're going to be coming from, where your camera's set up, where your blind is set up, all that kind of stuff. It seems to help in almost everything.
Do you think everyone naturally visualizes something before it happens, or do you think it's not something that most people do?
I think most people do it to a little bit, but they don't realize how much it probably helps and how much they need to take more advantage of it rather than, because everybody kind of plays out scenarios in their heads and stuff like that, which I would consider is kind of technically visualizing it. But maybe that's kind of all they do. They don't realize or give it enough credit. So then they're not using it to its full advantage.
I don't think they realize that they're doing it. Mm-hmm. I think you're right.
Yeah.
Like, I think everyone naturally does that. We all have an imagination. And if we're about to do something, then naturally we're going to be kind of predicting what that looks like.
Yeah.
But they don't recognize the fact that what they're doing is playing out the future and using visualization as a tool. But once you do, you can really harness that and use that to your advantage in everything.
Yeah.
And once you do that, it almost plays out exactly how you visualize it. And that's the cool thing about it. Like you're predicting the future, but you're setting yourself up for success.
Yeah. I
used to have really bad social anxiety. I think it was just, it's a mixture of different things, my youth and stuff, but I had really bad social anxiety, and I'm just not one of those people that really likes being around people in general. You know, that's not my thing. But I started visualizing myself before going to like social gatherings and shit like that, like visualizing myself being more social. And I remember about 8 years ago when I really started doing this, I showed up to this event and I was like the life of the party, which doesn't ever fucking happen. Usually I'm just that dude that's like by myself, or I'm talking to one other person, you know, like I don't want a lot of attention on me. But I went to this party and I was the life of the party. It was crazy. But I remember for hours previously, I was visualizing myself showing up and being social and stuff like that. And that's really when it clicked for me. I was like, there's something to this. Like you can really program yourself for success. And that's just using your mind to your advantage. But I don't think enough people realize how powerful the mind is, especially over control of reality itself. Like you can get, like it all starts in your head, then you bring that into existence through your thoughts and then taking action, of course. But like you're saying with hunting and stuff, you can kind of visualize the wind projection and stuff like that. And then when you go to execute on it, that was a thought that you're now bringing into existence. It's an interesting concept that hopefully after us talking about it for 10 minutes, people really use to their advantage. Yeah.
I remember I was lucky enough. I had a football coach in high school that was also a teacher. And he used to do this one class every year, and it was called performance psychology. And that's what he would encourage since he was a football coach, he would encourage all the football players to take it. And obviously other athletes and stuff like that. And some just random people would take it as well. And that was visualization and taking mental reps and all kinds of stuff like that is all the stuff that he talked about in the class. And that definitely seems like what helped with sports, what helped with strongman and all kinds of stuff like that. And then just obviously day-to-day life as well.
So that's what kind of opened the door to you.
Yeah. So I think that was in about grade 10. So I think I was 16 or so.
So you got a head start on it compared to most people.
Yeah, it was good. It was obviously a very, very useful course to take in high school and something to learn. Good to learn at such a young age so you can take advantage of it for most of your years of life.
Imagine if we put that in the school curriculum, like for everybody. Like if we stopped wasting time on most of the stupid shit that they teach in school, and instead we're like, hey, like this is an actual tool that you can use to become the best version of yourself, to accomplish whatever you want in this life. we're going to do that. But no, instead we're going to teach you, I don't know, some other stupid shit.
Yeah.
But that's amazing. I don't know how I got introduced to it. I think I read it somewhere in a book or something like that. But yeah, I remember that particular situation where I really used it for hours, and then I showed up and I was a completely different person, which over the years I've also used that into like developing into the person that I want to be. And I'm sure that you have as well.
Yeah.
Is you have this mental image of what kind of person you want to be, what characteristics those are, what activities you do, whatever it is. You start playing that out in your head. You do that enough times, you just become that type of person.
Yeah.
Instead of being stuck in this whole, well, this is how I am, so this is how I'm always going to be. Is like, no, like you can change your identity at any given point. It all starts in your head. You visualize what you want that person to look like, then you just move forward from there. But yeah, visualization. I didn't at all think that we would talk about that, but I'm super glad that we did, because we talk about it a little bit on the podcast, but hearing your perspective on it, especially as an athlete and stuff, that's amazing. I love it. Whenever someone wants to get started in strongman, because we have a lot of people that listen to the podcast that are interested in it, what do you think is the best place to start?
Definitely you got to find a gym or a support group of some sort where you can actually kind of get around and do it. Like, it's hard to go out there and kind of do it by yourself, unless I guess you might be able to go out in the woods and lift a couple of stones and stuff like that, right? But it's definitely, that's kind of, I think, what holds strongman back, is it's a little hard to find the equipment sometimes. But obviously with social media nowadays and stuff, it's a lot easier to get connected and find things like that.
Yeah.
But, and then obviously just general training's a good place to start. You know, if you're doing your squats and your bench and your deadlift and stuff like that, and just building a general base of strength, that's usually the best place to start. And then you can kind of start playing around with all the fun implements and stuff like that.
That's usually the transition that people make, is, you know, they'll be doing powerlifting. I know a lot of powerlifters that transfer over to strongman, and they came into strongman, they were doing great just off strength alone. Then once you start learning the technique, because there is technique. I know earlier we were talking about how like strong is strong and you're going to do good in strongman just based off strength alone, but there is a technique to every aspect of it.
Yeah.
Even loading stones. It's not just a matter of picking up a stone. Like, there is a way that you can learn to load stones that will allow you to move so much more weight. Yeah. And then with circus dumbbell, that is a art form on its own, which is usually everyone's weakest point, right? And it's because it's so technique based.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That was definitely a hard one at Clash this weekend. It was a 210-pound circus dumbbell for reps. And it was in the final too. So we had already done 5 events the day before. So,
which a lot of people are listening and they're like, oh, it's just 210 pounds, depending on how much they lift, of course. It's 210 pounds with this big ass awkward dumbbell that you have to place on your shoulder, get your leverages and everything completely right. The guy that was here yesterday, what was his name? The one with the big long beard?
Oh, Uncle Nikolai. Yeah.
His dumbbell form is immaculate. I've seen him at a few in the world. Is he the best in the world?
At his weight class, he's got the world record. So,
if anyone can go find him on Instagram and just look at his technique, it's so impressive. He almost has like an old classic. Yeah, that's what I noticed about like any of the old like really original strongman photos and stuff from back in the 40s and 50s and stuff. He almost takes that same old school traditional form with it, right? Yeah, and that alone is just. It's impressive. Yeah. Because everybody thinks about dumbbell as being like a shoulder exercise. But really, when you have the dumbbell pinned on your shoulder like that, you can get your whole body under it. And then it's a lot of leg drive and a lot of hip drive. And then you're basically just using your shoulder and tricep just to lock it out. I think that's the main thing that really hinders people in the gym is every exercise has a certain muscle group that it works, of course. You know, squats are legs, deadlifts is back, bench press is chest, whatever. Yeah. But in all reality, all of those compound lifts are a full body movement. And once you learn how to activate every part of your body for that specific exercise, you can add so much weight. And it's just from utilizing every aspect of you instead of just, oh, well, it's bench press, so I'm only going to focus on my chest. Yeah. You know, if you can like mess around with your grip and stuff, even your lat, I remember that's what really surprised me when I was learning how to lift better, was learning that it's like, no, like you need to activate your lats and all this different stuff just during bench press. And then leg drive, once you can get leg drive in there, then you can add 20, 30 pounds to your bench.
Right.
It's just, it's crazy. But I do think that's like the main thing besides consistency that holds people back is they have this idea as, well, squats are only for my legs. Squats will build everything.
Yeah. That's why they call them compound movements, is because they're kind of just a full body exercise. Right. And it's like, that's why what I loved is about even the gym I go to now, there you will barely see a single machine in there. I think we have one cable machine and one leg press, and that's it. Everything else is free weights, squat racks, dumbbells, you know, all that, stones, all that strongman stuff.
Well, that's what makes you strong in like every aspect.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're not just isolating one muscle, you're working your whole body.
And then you have the gyms where it's nothing but machines and no one's working their stabilizer muscles and stuff like that. So when it comes to being practical with what you're training, it doesn't exist really in the real world. Right. Which is why, like, if you're able to use free weights and focus on compound lifts and stuff, it's going to be so much more beneficial. Yeah. The older I get, that's definitely, we talk about it here at Norse all the time, is, I mean, being strong, of course, like, want to be as strong as possible. I want to look jacked and juicy as much as possible, whatever. But the older I get, it's just an emphasis on practicality and training for life. Like, I want to be 60 years old and just able to do whatever I want still. Yeah. Like, I want to be able to run a few miles, or I'm not into hunting yet. Yeah. As long as we've known each other, I've been talking about how I want to go hunting. Yeah. And there's been a few times where I went, just, there was no game out there. Yeah. But that's the thing too, is like, I want to be 50 years old if I want to go hunting, being able to do what you were talking about, pulling a deer, throwing it into the back of the truck if needed, whatever it is. But I feel like a lot of times people, they neglect that aspect because they are just so focused on, okay, well, I want to look this way. So I'm only going to focus on that aspect. And then in a day-to-day life, they can't walk up a flight of stairs. Right. Yeah. And it's like, well, where's the line there? Yeah. Where you can be both. And that's why I was so excited to do this podcast with you, is because you are, in your weight class, like, you're one of the best in the world. Yeah. But you do all this other stuff outside of strongman, and everything helps each other. Yeah. So just kind of like maybe opening people's minds to this idea is like, you don't have to be one-sided on something. Like, you can train for life, you can train for everything. Yeah. And be able to have more experiences. If anything, you're going to experience life to a fuller degree if you're able to be practical in everything that you do and be well diverse in this type of stuff. Yeah, that's what I like about kind of having different hobbies and stuff, is I like being able to transform my body to basically fit what I want to do at the time. Yeah. So for example, when I wasn't in prep for strongman or anything in the fall, when I was getting into that big moose hunt and stuff, I was hiking lots and being outside lots and putting in all the groundwork for the getting ready for the hunting season and stuff. So I dropped down to 220 pounds just from all the work I was doing and being outside and being more cardio centric and stuff like that. Yeah. And then you flop back to getting ready for a strongman competition, and I bulked back up to 250 pounds. So it's kind of cool to be able to, that your body is so adaptive and that you can manipulate it to whatever you want to be able to do. It remembers too. Right? Like, you, muscle memory is a real thing. Right. Yeah. And once you've been at a certain level, you can get back to that certain level with a lot less work. Like, you know, you had to take a lot of time to build that foundation and get to that certain point. Like you were saying, you can drop down to 220 and then get back up to 250. Yeah. And either way, your body's like, okay, cool, we've been there, we've done this, let's go. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it definitely seems to help once you, even not just your body, maybe it's a mental thing too, that, you know, once you've been there before, it's easier to get yourself back there rather than trying to like kind of push into foreign territory that you haven't been there yet. Which is why, once again, being diverse, like, pursue different aspects, pursue different things, reach those goals. Okay, then cool, I'm going to move on to something else. And then you can always go back to what you were doing too. Yeah. But instead of just being on like one singular path, which I'm not bashing that. I think it's admiring, like people that are just very dialed in on one specific thing. There's nothing wrong with it. But for a normal person, like people listening to this podcast, pursuing different hobbies, being just overall athletic is going to allow you to experience life to a fuller degree, which I think is probably the most important thing. I want to talk about more about hunting though. The strongman's cool enough, but let's talk about hunting. Yeah. How long have you been hunting? I'm guessing your entire life. Yeah. So I started hunting legally. You can start
shooting at the age of 12 in Canada. So basically that's kind of when I really started hunting on my or being able to shoot my own game, kind of to say. But I was fortunate enough that my grandpa was super into fishing and hunting. And luckily, he only had my mom and my aunt. So he only had 2 daughters. He never really had a son to take hunting, right? So as soon as he got a grandson, and I think I was fishing at like 2 or 3 years old. So it was like he was just excited, to have a boy in his life that he could teach and that. So yeah, I basically got brought into it from like the time I was able to walk. So
and then once it was legal, then you were out there by yourself. But I'm sure you've been hunting and fishing your entire life.
Yeah, I was always tagging along and stuff like that and fishing and stuff. But then once you turn 12, then it was my turn to pull the trigger, so to speak. And then at 16, you can get like a miner's permit, and then you can go hunting on your own with no supervision. So,
right.
Yeah.
What's the most exciting hunting story that you have?
I definitely think shooting that big whitetail was probably the best, because I put in so much work for that. And then finally for everything to just finally come together. Like I had cameras out in August and I was trying to track him August, September, October. And he was only coming in about once a week in the daylight. And in Canada, you can only legally shoot in the daylight. So I sat for 6 days straight before he finally came in. So I was driving, and this is all about an hour outside of the city where I live. So I'm driving an hour out there, putting out cameras, whatever, driving an hour back in, driving an hour out, sitting all day, driving an hour. So it was like, it just felt like it was a lot of work that finally like came together. So that was super rewarding.
How fulfilling is that though? Like as you're sitting there eating this whitetail that you put in all this fucking work to get, like there's probably no better feeling in the world.
Yeah.
I think that's something that's the part that I really want to experience, because I haven't yet, unfortunately, is that's such an important aspect of life. And unfortunately, like, we take advantage of the readily available food that we have. And because of that, like we eat all day, we don't really think much about it, but there's something spiritual and just primitive about that alone, where you had to put in all of this work to kill this thing. And because of that, you're much more grateful for the food itself and this animal that, you took its life in order to feed you. I want to experience that.
Yeah. And it's also cool, not even just to the point of getting the animal, but then after that, learning everything after that, learning how to gut it, learning how to skin it, learning how to process all the meat, and then finally eating the meat that you did all that work for. It's cool to like see that you can do all of that and you're basically self-sustainable.
And that's the part that bothers me the most. It keeps me up at night. I was like, I would be fucked, man. Like, I was talking to my girlfriend about this the other day. If everything was to go to shit, I don't know, say a natural disaster or I don't know, government or whatever, like say if everything went to shit, I'm very confident in my ability to plunder and pillage. Like, it does, like if I'm in like an urban environment or whatever, and I need to go kick open a door to a grocery store or whatever the fuck I need to do, I have no problems doing that. I think I'd be very good at it. But if I was forced to be out in the woods or something, I unfortunately would probably be fucked, and I do not like that at all. Which is why for years now I'm just like, I just need to hunt. Like I just need to kill something. I need to learn how to do the whole process of gutting it and all that stuff, skinning it, divvying up the meat. Like that's something I need to do, because especially as a man, like you should not be reliant on anyone else. And then knowing that I am reliant, like without grocery stores, I'd be fucked. Like I wouldn't know what to do. I did like fish and stuff back in the day when I was younger, but even then, man, it's been so long that I would probably be worthless with that. Yeah. The moral of the story is I need to go up to Canada and hunt.
Definitely. Yeah. The fishing up there is a lot of fun too. One of the ones, how you kind of mentioned ice fishing, like how we were talking. Yeah. The crazy trip that we do is, I live kind of far north in Canada, but then I drive another 7.5 hours north, and then we go about 10 kilometers or 6 miles across the ice on snowmobile, and then we camp on the ice for about 3 or 4 nights with propane heaters in little insulated tents, and then we fish basically 24/7. So
what's crazy? Most people would lose their mind if they were forced to sit in that type of environment for 4 hours. And you do it for 3 days.
Yeah.
There's nothing else out there.
No.
Like you don't have anything else going on. You're just out there with maybe another person.
Yeah.
And you're on the ice. You don't even have trees and shit near you. You're in the middle of a fucking lake.
Yeah.
Like there's nothing else going on around you. That sounds amazing, but at the same time, like most people can't do that, but they should be able to. They don't want to deal, like they don't want to sit there with themselves is what it boils down to.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, it's good to just kind of get away and sleep on a camp cot, cook on a propane stove, and just kind of get away from the city and all of that kind of all those elements, and then kind of just divert back to nature and just kind of be at peace with yourself and thoughts inside your head. And it's very peaceful being out there and doing it, and then doing something like fishing at the same time while you're in the outdoors. So.
Right, and then you come back with fish, and we go through that whole process again. Like I said, I've never been hunting and stuff like that, but the main benefit that I get from camping is everything that you just said, of course, is that when I come back to this world, the man-made world, whatever you want to call it, I'm able to perform at such a higher level. I'm recharged, my mind's clear, and because of that, I can just execute beyond belief. Where if I go too long without detaching and not going camping or hiking or something like that, my mental stability and everything just starts to spiral downwards so quickly. And that's why when people reach out to me and they're like, I'm dealing with this, I'm like, have you gone on a hike? No, I was like, then put down your fucking phone and go on a hike. Like that is it. Yeah. I really do think that that's it. Like people just need to spend less time around other people, less time on social media and stuff like that. And they just need to go out into nature and detach and process whatever the fuck they need to process. But there's you have to deal with, unfortunately, people have to deal with anxiety and all this shit now. Like, oh, I haven't checked my phone in 6 hours. Yeah. That's a rough place to be in. But you can slowly work to a point where like you don't give a shit about that anymore. And the more time that you spend out in nature, like you're saying, 3 days out in the middle of a lake, then when you get back, like you're not reliant on that technology anymore. And because you're not reliant on this one thing, you're a stronger individual because of it. Your energy isn't going to this. Your energy is going to what you actually want to accomplish. Like in your situation, strongman. Yeah. You spend time out in nature. You get back to the real world. You start training again. You have laser focus because your head's clear. It all plays hand in hand with each other. Yeah, I definitely feel like I'm getting a little squirrely right now because I was so dedicated to this prep for Clash on the Coast and stuff is about 4 months. And I haven't been doing that really. I think I've only gone on one fishing trip since I started prep because I've just been so dedicated to getting ready to that competition. Yeah. So it's good to finally finish with that competition, and now I can get back to doing those things too and start diverting more time towards stuff like that. Yeah. And I definitely feel myself getting better too. So you experience that too, where if you don't get out into nature, definitely you just it takes this mental and emotional stress on you. Yeah. Yeah. It seems like I'm really bad for that. It's like if I don't put in an effort to do those things, then I start doing other things to kind of deal with those problems. You start drinking more, or you start doing other stupid stuff like that. Yeah. And it's like, then you got to remember, you got to find those good coping mechanisms rather than those bad coping mechanisms. And then get back to, going outside, hunting, that kind of stuff. That's always when I notice it too, man. Whenever I start wanting to indulge in shit that if I had my shit together, I wouldn't want to do, if it's drinking or even smoking weed or whatever it is. Yeah. If I catch myself, or even with nicotine, man, like when I catch myself just nonstop having to have some sort of external stimulus, because that's what it is for me. Like I'm a stimulant junkie. Like I just, whatever allows me to go faster, I'm all about it. But I started abusing that. And the reason for that is because I'm not allowing myself to like calm down out in nature. And it's impossible for me to calm down on a daily basis, either if it's at the house or business or whatever. Like I have to detach from that. But yeah, when I catch myself, it always starts like on the weekends, maybe a Friday and Saturday, or start having one drink, then it's multiple drinks. And then it's like Tuesday night, I'm like, I could really use a whiskey drink right now. I'm like this, or now take a step back. Oh, when's the last time I went hiking or camping? It's been a few months. Okay, well, we need to go do that. Yeah. And luckily, everyone around me, they understand that as well. Yeah. Or they'll even tell me if I start being an irritable prick. They're like, hey, you need to get the fuck away from everybody. And I'm like, yeah, please, thank you. My favorite part, one of my favorite things throughout the year is that yearly ice fishing picture that you send me.
Yeah.
You've been sending me this picture of you fishing on ice for probably 3 to 4 years now, and I can always expect it. Like, I know it's coming.
Yeah.
And then I get it. I'm like, okay, cool. Like, it's good to know that Isaac's doing exactly what Isaac needs to do.
Yeah,
I love it.
A new one that I started this year that you liked also was that I bought one of those pop-up tents on the back of my truck too, on that roof rack. So I haven't gotten a lot of use out of it yet. I think I've only spent about 3 or 4 nights in it, but hoping to take advantage of it once the weather gets nicer this summer in Canada. So.
How are you liking that? Because I've been looking at them too for my truck.
Yeah, I love it. Honestly, it's so easy. It only takes about 10 minutes to set up. You just pull the straps and the tarp off and flip it open, and the telescopic ladder drops down, and then you just crawl right in it. And the one I got's huge too. Like, it's a full-size king bed in it.
Really?
So yeah.
Yeah, you're good. You got all the room.
So it's only about a 4-inch thick memory foam mattress in it, but that's honestly, that's more than like enough. Glamping compared to sleeping, in a tent on the ground or something like that.
What do you think younger you would say if he knew that you were living in such luxury as you were out in nature?
Yeah, definitely. I think I was a little spoiled, probably.
Right, yeah. I think about that too, man. I remember back in the day, like when I first started doing like backcountry camping and stuff, it was always just like, I got to be as primitive as possible, like bring a tarp and that's it, and now it's like, no, like I'm going to bring a mat to sleep on, or maybe even a little inflatable pillow. And back in the day, if I knew that I was doing that, I would 100% think that I was being a little bitch. But yeah, it's okay. You put in the reps. That's the way I look at it. When I was getting tattooed the other day, it was kind of the same thing, where I was getting tattooed and I was telling her, Alicia, the chick that was doing it all, I was like, just to let you know, I'm going to be here for about 3 or 4 hours, and then I'm going to fuck off because I don't feel like dealing with it. And she was talking about how it's the same for her, where back in the day when I first started getting tattooed, especially when I was doing the head, I'd be sitting there for 8 hours of just like pain that I didn't know was possible. And looking back on it, I was proving that to myself, where I was like, hey, I know that I can do this. Like, I'm going to force myself to do this. And it was almost like I had to prove to myself that I was capable. But now it's like, I can fucking do it and I don't need to prove anything. Like, I'm going to try to be comfortable if I go camping. Yeah. I'm not going to torture myself through 8 hours of getting my head tattooed anymore. Yeah. But I think that's a healthy place to be. Yeah. Where it's not necessarily trying to prove something to myself all the time. It's just like, I'm cool with where I'm at. Like, I always, of course, I'm going to like continue trying to do something, move the needle a little bit, like be uncomfortable. Yeah. But it's like I experienced so much discomfort. Yeah. That now I'm like, I'm good. I don't really give a shit anymore. Like, it's fine. Yeah. I usually do 1 or 2 camping trips that are a little more uncomfortable than others. So it's nice to have the others as a little more comfortable. So that way you're still like looking forward to it sometimes, rather than having it be more of a hassle than that too. Yeah. Absolutely. Well, cool, man. We're about an hour in, so we're going to wrap this up. Where can people find you on Instagram, I guess? Yeah, so my Instagram is Max Out Maze, and then obviously they probably see me on the Norse one every once in a while and stuff like that, and hopefully see me around competing and stuff like that too. So awesome. Thanks, Isaac. Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Norse Mentality. This podcast is a byproduct of Norse Fitness. We make clothing, fitness accessories, supplements, and other tools to help you reach your true potential. You can check it out at norsefitness.co. And if you found this episode beneficial, please share it with a friend. That way we can continue to make a bigger impact and change the world. Thank you for your support, and we'll talk to you soon.